Ya.
Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Macarena Moreno de la sección de Diplomacia Pública de la Embajada de Estados Unidos en Madrid y ante todo muchísimas gracias por su interés en conectar con nosotros esta tarde. Voy a presentarles muy brevemente a nuestra ponente de hoy, es Sally Conover, que tiene un perfil muy interesante y muy distinto al usual entre los profesores de inglés. Es graduada en Relaciones Internacionales por Penn State University en Pensilvania. Cursó un máster en enseñanza de inglés como segunda lengua en The School for International Training de Vermont y otro máster en Business Administration en la Pepperdine University de California. Tras una serie de estancias en el extranjero como profesora de inglés, en el año 2016 Sally se integró en el International Education Center, la escuela de inglés del Diablo Valley College de California, en la Bahía de San Francisco. El International Education Center es un centro de referencia de Education USA, que es la asesoría oficial del Departamento de Estado que informa gratuitamente sobre estudios en los Estados Unidos. Sally empezó como directora académica y enseguida fue promocionada a directora de la escuela, directora general de la escuela. Y en cuanto la conozcan van a comprender por qué. Sally es una persona entusiasta, súper eficiente y ante todo una gran líder, una capacidad impresionante de liderazgo. La embajada entró en contacto con Sally durante los meses del confinamiento, por lo que confieso que solamente la conozco en plasma, virtualmente. Pero hemos trabajado a lo largo de estos meses codo con codo porque la embajada seleccionó al International Education Center para impartir clases virtuales de inglés a un grupo de 75 estudiantes españoles de formación profesional, fundamentalmente de Castilla y León, pero que también incluye a algunos estudiantes de Valencia y de Castilla-La Mancha, en un programa que se llama Go American English for Work. No resulta nada fácil enganchar a tantos estudiantes con clases virtuales, además en horario extraescolar, algunas los fines de semana, impartidas desde tan lejos, pero Sally lo ha conseguido. Sally y su equipo de excelentes profesores, porque son 5 grupos de inglés a los que imparten enseñanzas. En fin, solamente añadir que si les interesa la presentación que va a proyectar Sally, la vamos a colgar en el chat, también la vamos a colgar en la plataforma de aula y en el canal de YouTube. O sea que, sin más, le paso la palabra a Sally Conover. Sally, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Macarena, and thank you everyone for being here this afternoon, this evening. As Macarena said, my name is Sally Conover. And first off, well, number one, happy Earth Day, everyone. And then number two, I have to apologize for my eye. I was playing tennis and hit myself in the eye. So that's reason for the black and blue. So I'm going to share my screen and start our presentation. Let's see. All right, and let me get into a present mode. Okay, so here we are. So I'm going to be talking about the American ESL teaching style and more specifically about what we are doing. As Macarena mentioned, we are located outside of this beautiful city, which is San Francisco. We are a suburb of San Francisco. The agenda, so what we are going to be doing today, introductions and background, and then I'll be talking about key characteristics in our teaching, connection, confidence, and personal pathways, and how we incorporate those into all of our teaching. We'll talk about some tips and ideas, and then what to keep post-pandemic. And then we will have time for questions and answers. So as Macarena mentioned, if you have questions as we go, please include them in the chat and we will have time afterwards to get to them. All right, next screen. So a little bit of background about ourselves. The International Education Center at Diablo Valley College. We opened in 2000. Our instructors all have experience overseas. We think it's very important for them to be able to empathize with students coming from a variety of different countries. And they all have their masters either in linguistics, teaching English as a foreign or a second language, or a related field. Our program at Diablo Valley College is an academic English program. This is our primary program, and this is for students who are planning to do their undergraduate studies in the United States. So in this case, the groups are multilingual. They're coming from countries around the world. We have European students, Asian students, South American students. So we're bringing together students with many different language backgrounds. We also have specialized programs. So we have done short-term university groups, and in those cases, the groups would be monolingual. I talk about this because I realize that for many of you in your settings, your situation, you have a monolingual group. Most likely all of your students are native Spanish speakers. Then we also have another specialized program is we are part of the Education USA Academy Network, which is a program for high school students. And again, that is a multilingual group. Then as Macarena mentioned, we've started in the last year to provide classes for the Virtual Go American English for Work program, which is sponsored by the U.S. Embassy in Madrid. And this again is a monolingual group. Maybe I will talk a little bit about that program. And we have been very excited and very honored to be part of this program. We have selected 75 students from primarily from the region of Castilla y León, but as Macarena mentioned, there are also students from other parts of Spain. And the idea here is to give these students who are either in the grado medio or grado superior the opportunity to improve their English for over a 2-year period, and then to hopefully come to the United States and do a program, a certificate program at a community college. So these are students who are traditionally underrepresented. They are in the technical fields. And so this is a great opportunity for them, and our instructors are just really relishing the opportunity to be interacting with them. We have 5 different levels, going from a pretty beginning level to a fairly advanced level of English. So this slide just shows some of the partners in this program. Okay, so the next slide is talking about our current reality. We have been online and offering virtual programs since March 16th, 2020, so more than a year. The good news is that we are planning to return to a hybrid model this summer. And by hybrid, we will allow students into the United States who are studying on a student visa. And they will be doing some face-to-face classes, although a lot of the coursework will be done still online. We're thinking deliberately about what to keep and how to move forward. As we all know, this past year plus now it's been enough time that we have formed new habits. And so we want to make sure that when we move out of a pandemic world, that we're thinking strategically and deliberately about what we want to keep and what were the good things that came, the silver linings from the pandemic, how they have changed our teaching, and what we would like to keep moving forward. What we don't want to do is to just revert back to what we were doing pre-pandemic. We think that is a wasted opportunity because we have learned so much over this past year. We acknowledge that it has been a huge learning curve for both teachers and administrators. It was a Herculean effort to get up to speed and online very quickly, and then to stay online and to be delivering really first top-rate programs. It was a huge learning curve for everyone involved. We also recognize that the coronavirus has forced a massive change in how we are doing things that otherwise would have taken many years. Getting all of our teachers, some are very tech savvy, some are a little bit tech reluctant, or I should say were tech reluctant. The past year has forced everyone to get up to speed on technology. And again, you know, if COVID hadn't occurred, we would not see the changes that we have currently seen. So again, we want to take advantage of that change moving forward. And then what has been really important throughout this process is sharing of techniques and tips for everybody involved. Onto the next slide, one of the most important things that we have been working on is creating shared expectations for both students and teachers. At the beginning of each of our sessions or our new classes or our new programs, we have to ask, how do we know how to be in a new setting, in an online virtual setting or in a classroom setting, when we have students coming from many different countries or from many different backgrounds? How do they know how they're supposed to act? How do they know how they're supposed to be? We conduct all of our classes currently on Zoom. And so again, like, how are they supposed to act on Zoom? Are they supposed to be on mute? Are they supposed to have their videos on? Those types of questions come up again and again. What we've been trying to do is to model what we would like to see as much as possible. We've discovered that orientation, so before each of our new programs, we have orientations or a kickoff session, and that becomes an opportunity to model behavior that we hope to see during classes. The orientations also become a time to get students up to speed pretty quickly on a lot of the platforms that students will be using during their courses. And then words and policies have to be put in action. We can say everything, you know, and make it sound very nice, but if we're not actually doing what we're saying we're doing, it becomes meaningless. All right, the next slide. Oops. Okay. So the three areas that I mentioned earlier were connection, confidence, and personal pathways. And so the first area of connection and what we are doing to connect our students and our teachers and our staff. So I want you to think about some of the following questions. We won't ask you to give your answers here, but if you could think about them. How do you connect with students? In your current situation or in a past situation or a future situation, how are you connecting with students? Now you can take that literally or not. So on Zoom or on your platform or in a face-to-face class, how are you connecting with students? And then how do students connect with each other? So again, different situations, but in a Zoom situation where everybody is in a different location, how are students connecting with each other? And these are some of the questions that we've been working with specifically over the last year. So some of the things that we do, we use Canvas, which is our learning management system, and each of the classes, each of the teachers has a Canvas class, and we kind of think of it as the equivalent of a physical classroom where you could find all of the materials that you need. So on Canvas, students work, students can access their grades, students can look at a schedule, they can refer to materials that have been used in class, they can communicate with their teachers. So it's all one place for students to find all of the materials that they need. We're also using then whatever forms of communication our students are using. So we use WhatsApp to communicate with students. We use WeChat, which is necessary if you have Chinese students, Line if you have Japanese students, text if they are local students. So we really moved away from emails and other forms of communication that this young generation do not use. And so it's challenging because there are many different platforms, and the young people are the ones who drive the new types of platforms. So keeping up with the young people can be challenging, but if we truly want to connect with them, we have to be using the materials that they are using. We also have been using and experimenting with Discord as our lobby. And if you're not familiar with Discord, it was really a gaming platform. So many of our students are very familiar with Discord, which is nice because it's a familiar medium for them. But we use Discord as our lobby, especially when we are not in a face-to-face situation. And we use it for announcements, schedule changes, if someone is sick, if we have a new opportunity coming up. We also use it to post links to previous sessions or perhaps workshops. So Discord has become a main source of our communication with students. And then the exciting thing is within Discord, how students communicate with each other. So you probably have realized that students may be contacting teachers, they may be contacting you when you are done with work for the day, but they're just starting their homework. And so it's been a struggle sometimes for teachers to delineate when they are on and when they are off. And so many teachers are so generous with their time that they will be responding to students' comments 24/7, which isn't good. We don't want that. But what we found with Discord is when the students are on Discord together, they start answering each other's questions. So I'm just going to show you if I can move. Okay, here's a screenshot of one of our Discord channels. You can see on the left all of our different channels, and then a conversation in the middle of what the assignment was. And you could see, well, I hope you can see, the assignment was to write a 900-word paper composed of 3 parts. And then there's a conversation about that. What's not shown here is a further conversation. The instructor wanted students to use a certain style when they were writing their paper. And there was a conversation, well, what does that mean? And which style are we using? And so what we've discovered with Discord and what we find exciting about it is that what would have been student going to teacher and asking for clarification, students can now ask each other. And so there's true meaningful communication in English between the students on what it is they're to do. And as we know, they can figure out so many of their own questions amongst themselves. So we've been very happy with the use of Discord, and pandemic or not, we plan to continue to use this. Okay. The next area after connection that we really concentrate on is confidence. And again, I will ask you to just consider a few questions. So what affects a student's confidence levels? Why is a student confident or lacking in confidence? That's a big, deep question, but I think it's worth thinking about how a student's confidence is determined or affected in a classroom setting. And then equally, what affects teachers' confidence level. And we see this particularly through during the pandemic, when we have students or teachers, sorry, who are sometimes not that confident in the technology. So how can we boost the teacher's confidence and students' confidence? All right, so again, some things that we do. We have weekly and bi-weekly check-ins, and we adapt where necessary. So this is actually both for students and for teachers. So students, the teachers are checking in with the students frequently, and we the teachers use a lot of different diagnostics early on in the program to find out where students are. They also use a lot of feedback forms, and it might be a poll on Zoom or a Google form to ask students questions about how they're feeling about the material, if it's too easy, if it's too difficult, what they're unclear on, so that the teachers can adjust accordingly. We ask the students to reflect on their learning. We can tell students, "Oh, you're doing great. You're doing really well in this area." But it's equally important for the students, for us to ask the students how they feel that they're doing. Oftentimes, students won't realize the progress that they're making unless they're asked specifically to examine their work and what they've done and how much progress they have made over a defined period of time. We have one-on-one meetings with the students to check in with them, especially during COVID. There have been so many other factors going on in students' lives to check in, to make sure that everything is okay, and see how we can optimize their learning. And then the last area is personal pathways. So again, I'll ask you to think about some of the following questions. What are the students' goals and reasons for being in a class? It may be they have no choice. It's part of their curriculum. They have to be there. It may be that their parents have pushed them and they need to be there. Or they may have their own personal reasons and their own goals for wanting to learn English. But it's very important that we know what those goals are and the reasons for them being in your class. And then what triggers interest and what makes connections? So if you've got the students in the class, but what will get them excited? What will get them involved in the class? What will help them make connections between what they're learning in class and what their outside life is, what is happening in their outside life? Again, what we do, as much as possible, we allow for student choice, and that choice in materials, in assignments, in roles. So for example, one of the areas that we use a lot is a website called Nucella, which has a lot of great reading materials. When teachers are assigning reading assignments to students, they may give them options of these 5 articles, pick the one that interests you. Okay, so we're not forcing them to read something, we're allowing them the choice to find something that interests them. Just a plug for Nucella, it has a very nice feature in that you can adjust the difficulty level of the reading assignment. And so again, we can either do that for students, or we can teach them how to do it so that they can adjust the difficulty level themselves. So it's getting them more involved in their learning. We also work hard to, within a classroom, to assign, give students roles and different tasks that they are responsible for, so that they are part of the classroom and it's not just being taught to them. We incorporate projects that allow self-exploration and again, interests. So in some of our classes, students are leading presentations from a TED Talk. They are picking their own topic for the TED Talk and then leading that discussion. So this obviously is a more advanced level group, but it allows the students to, what they're doing in class relates to their interests and their life outside of class. And then one of the things that we have really been enjoying discovering and working with and developing is using Google Docs to create a portfolio of writing. And I'm sure many of you use Google Docs. You probably know that there is an option when you're sharing a document that you can either edit it or you can make suggestions. And I'm just going to show you an example of, actually 2 examples of a teacher's use of Google Docs to help students with their writing. So you can see this is Jonathan's writing. He's a fairly lower level student. And you can see what is marked in green. Again, we're in suggesting mode. What's marked in green are the instructor's comments or suggestions. And so they come up in green in the text. And then to the right, you can see the suggestion. The nice thing about this is it is a suggestion. It's not a demand. It's not a you must do this. And so as the student then is going back into the document, they can accept the suggestion or they cannot accept it. It then becomes very easy if you're accepting the suggestion, you click it, boom, and voila, you have your suggestion incorporated into the text. So this has been a way for teachers to work with, in this case, lower level students, talking about their own personal history and writing that. The nice thing about this, if you're doing it in a class, the teacher can be moving from document to document and making comments as students are working on their assignment. The second one is, oops, there we go. Okay, the topic is your favorite place. And again, they've incorporated pictures here. This is a little bit more advanced level. But what the teachers are doing also is they have a number of assignments, of tasks, writing tasks, and they're just using the same Google Doc so that the student at the end of the session will have a portfolio of their writing and they can see their progress throughout the time. Okay, so next, I'm going to talk just about some tips and ideas. We have found it really helpful that at faculty meetings, we have weekly faculty meetings, that it is 10 to 15 minutes at least is dedicated to sharing ideas and tips. As you know, we mentioned, the learning curve has been so great over this past year, and we've just to dedicate time for the teachers to be sharing with each other things that have gone well in their classroom or things that have not gone well and how they might be changed is really important. We rotate that so everyone is sharing something, so not just some people sharing all the time. And we've also made it so that it doesn't have to be a massive idea. It could be a small thing that's making a huge difference in your classroom. And we're learning so much so quickly that sharing an idea, it may remind somebody of it. Oh, that's right, I meant to try that, or I was thinking about that and I forgot about it. Or it may teach somebody something new. But we have found this to be very helpful. And also just really building community within our faculty group, that when they're sharing things, it's strengthening their bonds. We then have teachers going back to the person who shared the information to talk or to ask more questions about that. So that has been really very helpful. The next slide is what we've been thinking about, and probably many of you are in this situation of what do we do post-pandemic, and the things to keep. We are, of course, we don't know when everything is going to get back to normal. As I mentioned, we are hoping to have more students in country this summer and moving into this fall, and things right now in the United States are going well. Finally, our vaccination rate is good right now, and things are looking up, but we don't know what's going to happen. So we're looking hopefully to have more students in person in the fall, but maybe that will happen, maybe it won't. But the important thing is that we've been talking about is, well, what do we keep? There have been many silver linings throughout this COVID time. And so I think it's important as instructors, as administrators, as programs, to think about what's good with what we've been doing for the last year and what do we want to keep. So some of the things that we do want to keep are Discord, as I mentioned, as a communication tool, as our real hub for communicating quickly with students knowing that that's where they can go for information. This is actually something we've been struggling a little bit before the pandemic of how are we best communicating with students? So this has been a nice discovery, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve. We have done all of our placement tests online for the last year, and that is something we will definitely continue to do. We'll continue to improve our tests and our delivery of them, but the idea that we can test students earlier. In our situation, our students are coming into the country, so if we can test them while they're still in their home countries, it gives us a better idea of their level. And importantly, it gives the students and their families, their agents, whomever, an idea of their level. So in our case, our biggest challenge is to let students know how long they will need to study in our English program before they can move on to their next step. This is for our longer students. So do they need one session? Do they need 4 sessions? What level are they at? So when we can do this online placement, we can give them a much better idea of their timeline and help them plan. So that is definitely something that we will be keeping in place post-pandemic. We've also have built up a number of instructional videos for reference. And so this may be things that teachers are doing in class. They're doing it, it's a daily routine or a weekly routine, and they may create a video. We use Loom, which is a really easy video program to capture your screen, a screencast. And then those videos that we're keeping are, again, they're either located on a Canvas platform or on Discord, but students can then reference those videos when they need them on their own. They don't need to ask somebody. Or in the case of, for example, if we have workshops or we have special guests, it's not a one and done. If you aren't there that day at that time, you've missed it. No, you can go, if you, for whatever reason, weren't able to see that speaker, you can go back and watch a recording. So we really like that idea, and we're working on developing our indexing of all of our videos that we have for students. Another thing that we really like are the online office hours. Again, this gives students and teachers a little bit more flexibility. Maybe they can't stay after class, or maybe a different time is more convenient for them. So the online ability and one-on-one ability really makes that possible. The last thing that I would say before we go into a question and answer is a resource that I found, and I found to be very helpful over this year. I've turned into a big podcast fan as I walk. As for a while, the only thing we could do was to be outside walking. And so as I walk, I listen. And so I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. But this Jennifer Gonzalez, which is a podcast, and the name of it is The Cult of Pedagogy, is just an excellent resource. She really interviews and digs into specific aspects of teaching, which I have found just really incredibly useful over the past year. So that's my little plug for a good resource to hang on to. So I think with that, we will go into a question and answer. And again, my contact information is below. If you would like to contact me about anything, please feel free to email me or to WhatsApp me, or however you want to contact me. And Macarena, do we have any questions? Maybe I will also stop the share at this point.
Yes, we do. We do. The first question comes from Madrid, and it's about the use of Discord. And this teacher is curious about if the students use their own Discord accounts and they accept to use it for the classes, or they create new accounts especially for the classes.
So we have our own channel, and we invite students to join that channel. So they may have their own accounts, but they would get an invitation to join specifically our channel. And then we can manage that with whether it's just their classroom that they can look at, or if it's a larger community. And that actually is something that we had been talking about, because we had different Discord channels for different programs. So, for example, with our Madrid or with the Spain program for the virtual Go American English for Work, we had a specific channel. But then we thought, but they're kind of isolated. They're in their own little tower of just the students, the Spanish students. Maybe they want to communicate with the students from Georgia or the students in the United States. So our discussions now are, how can we open it up so that within our International Education Center channel, they can move around to different channels and interact with different students from different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. Another question is from Beatriz Granados, who is a teacher, who's some of her students are in Go American English for Work. And she's curious about your what kind of platform you use for the online test. Do you use Google Forms or any other?
So the online testing, actually, we have taken our placement test pre-pandemic, and we've converted them to online. And so we actually had 4 different parts. There's a writing sample. We use a Michigan test, which is more for listening and then reading and grammar, and then an oral interview. And so the writing is old-fashioned. We ask students we give them the prompt online, and then we ask them paper and pencil to write their answer, take a picture, and send it to us. It's a little bit clunky, but it's been working. We have talked about just doing it on a Google Doc also. That's the writing sample. The listening, we use a Google form. We do the listening over Zoom. They fill out a form. The Michigan test, we've actually converted into a platform called Quizzes, Q-U-I-Z-I-Z-Z, which is actually a pretty fun app, and students, it's very familiar for them because they can do it on their phone. It's kind of a quiz type thing. And then the oral interview is probably our biggest challenge, but it's actually been a very nice discovery. We use Flipgrid, and we ask students, we give them the prompt, and then they open the app or they go to the website and they record themselves on Flipgrid and then send us, send their response. So the placement is pretty involved, but it's also a nice kind of crash course for the students to get up to speed on all of those different platforms, because they're going to use Google Forms, they're going to use Quizzes, they're going to use Flipgrid in their classes. So during the orientation and during the placement process, they're getting used to that. That was a long answer, sorry.
That's okay. We have a comment from Rosa Maria Corredera Martos, who is very agrees with you on Google Docs, on the use of Google Docs. She says that she uses it all the time. It is a great tool, and she said that you can also add rubrics to the Google Docs. So she thinks it's great.
Yeah.
And the last question I have is from Madrid, and it is English teaching in Spain tends to focus a lot on grammar. Do you think that speech is more basic to language learning than the written form?
Well, it all goes back to the students' needs and their goals, right? And we try to incorporate as much speaking and use of grammar as possible. So, so often we find students who say, well, I already know this, I already have done this, but they can't actually use it. So it's, of course, focusing on the grammar and learning the grammar, but more importantly, putting it into practice. And so, whether they're doing that, practicing with partners using specific structures, but incorporating the grammar into their active vocabulary and their active speech.
Okay, and there's a last question. It says, is online teaching very different to in-person teaching? Can you share some tips or best practices with us? I guess you've already given many, but
what I would say with that is, and I'm on the administrative side. I am teaching also, but there's a lot of work that is involved in getting a course onto an online platform. So of course there are different, there are a lot of differences, but getting that course up onto an online platform takes time. What we're really working with now is how can we make that more sustainable for teachers, that, once somebody has developed their course online, it can be passed on to other people so people aren't reinventing the wheel. So, I think there are definitely things that are great online that aren't possible face-to-face. I would say most of our teachers, actually, I might have to take that back. Many of our teachers are very, very anxious for the day when they can get back into the classroom. We do have teachers who have surprised themselves and said, oh my God, this is great. I love this. And I think what we found with all of the teachers, and I talked about this, huge learning curve, but I think most of the teachers have been, and administrators, because it's been new for everybody, have really been inspired and motivated because they're learning so many new things. And so I think it's been exhausting, but it's also been invigorating. And people, when I talked about sharing the ideas, we have to like stop people because people are learning so much so quickly and they want to share that. So what I've seen is kind of a new energy from teachers, just because they've been forced to try new things and learn new things.
Okay, this is it. I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you so much, Sally. It's been great it is morning in California, right?
Yes, it's morning in California.
And is it sunny there?
It is sunny. It's always sunny in California. No, I say that we need some rain. We're in kind of a dry period, but we've had a very nice spring.
We have a very stormy spring weather here. So it's been raining all day. Now it's kind of, we have dark clouds and sun, so we'll see.
Well, I just want to thank everybody who's joined us. And if you want to continue the conversation, please, my contact information was on the slide, and please get in touch with me. New ideas are bursting out all over the place, and I think it's, we find it great to be exchanging ideas with people from different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then thank you so much, Sally, and we'll be in touch.
Great.
Y muchas gracias a todos por conectarse y por seguir nuestra sesión de hoy. Buenas tardes.